Hello and welcome to Beebe Book Buzz. I'm Karen Stern, head of reference at our library, and I'm here today with Jackie Powers, our assistant director, and Beth Radcliffe, who is another reference librarian. And we're here, as we always are, to talk to you about the books we've been reading lately in hopes that we can help you find your next great read. So we're going to start today with Jackie, who has a mystery for us, I believe.
It is. I'm not going to talk about it. No, I'm going to talk about the series. I think, because it's more important than the book itself. I think you want to read these in order. So this is the fourth book. It's called Murder Crossed Her Mind. It's by Stephen Spotswood.
Very English sounding.
And so this is the fourth book. It came out. They've been one a year. He's been pretty consistent, so it's been the last 4 years. And they're the Pentecost and Parker series. And I think it's flying a little bit under the radar.
I hadn't heard of it.
There's holds and stuff, but we didn't have a buzz. I think there's room for more circulations here.
Okay. Not that we're pushing the library. Or anything.
No. So the mysteries themselves are solid. They're not hugely innovative. I mean, I don't ever guess the ending, but I don't ever.
Yeah.
So that's not saying anything. But the series it really shines if you appreciate good characters. And the time and the setting are also notable. It's New York City. They live in Brooklyn. It's 1945 at the start of the series. It's just after the wars ended. By the latest book, it's like 1947, I think the summer of 47. And so the stories are all told they're first person from the perspective of Willow Jean Parker. And she mostly goes by Parker. You don't get her, she doesn't often really use her, she thinks her first name is ridiculous, so she doesn't use it too often. But she is at the outset about 20. She ran away from home after a troubled childhood as a teen and joined the circus.
And for real, wow.
For real. Yep. She even picked up a number of special skills, if you will. She's pretty handy with a knife. And she catches the attention she has kind of a chance interaction with this woman, and they end up, she sort of catches her attention. And the woman is this famed private investigator, Lillian Pentecost. And she decides that she's going to take Willow Jean under her wing and train her to be her assistant. So she moves in and everything. Like now they live in this big brownstone in Brooklyn. And it's a very like Holmes and Watson relationship, which I did not until I started writing this realize. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. So Miss Pentecost, not Miss, very modern for 1945.
I was going to say, wow.
Is the eccentric genius. And Parker is sort of like just tagging along, occasionally has like an insight.
The sidekick.
She's the sidekick.
Occasionally uses her knife?
She's the muscle.
Yeah.
Even though I think she's like 5'3", like she's like 20. So while the author really doesn't get into Ms. Pentecost very much, like as the books go on, you get her backstory. It kind of comes out very slowly over time. Because it's all told from Parker's perspective, like you know a lot about her and how she thinks about things. And I wish I had a better word to describe her because I don't think it does her justice, but she's sassy.
Right.
Like she's mouthy and she's brash. She's a redhead. She's sharp as a tack, but acts before she thinks, as most 20-year-olds do. Like, as the books get older, you sort of see her learning to control some of that, but she's sort of, she's brash. She prefers the company of women and has several relationships throughout the series, which is like a nice little just difference. I don't know, It's just different. And there are some actual plot lines that get into the gay scene in New York in that time, and like how obviously like complicated that was. This is before heavy McCarthyism, but it still wasn't kosher. So she's often in clubs, and sometimes that plays into her her professional life at times comes into it. So that's kind of an interesting side plot, I guess. Not a plot really, but
it's something about the setting and the frame of the book.
Right. It goes into that. That's a little bit. It's just a little bit different. And so Miss Pentecost, or Miss P, as Parker calls her, I think is like in her 40s. She's kind of unclear, but she has multiple sclerosis. And as the books go on, it becomes a little like
Wow.
you can tell that it's becoming increasingly debilitating, and she sort of knows that at a certain point she's not going to be able to function the way she does right now. But she's a really interesting character. She is not warm and fuzzy. She is very focused on justice and fairness and women's rights, and her clients are often women, or the cases are in service of crimes against women.
Right.
She does a thing on Saturdays where she has like an open call where only women can come, and while Parker teaches them self-defense in the basement, she does like random self-defense classes on like old wrestling mats. Ms. P is doing kind of like quick detective work, kind of, seeing if she can help people in the moment, people who would not be able to afford to pay her. She kind of gives advice and directs them to the right places and things. So Parker is perpetually in awe of her and is constantly talking about her as like the genius. And she's it's very Sherlockian in her kind of way. She's connecting dots that no one else is paying attention to. So that's a nice, it's kind of like the women's version of Sherlock
Right.
Holmes.
It's an homage.
But it's
slightly
an
more.
homage, yeah.
Yeah.
So the cast is rounded out then by the housekeeper, Mrs. Campbell, who's Scottish, and so she's making like haggis in the kitchen, and she's like making sure everyone eats, and she lives in the carriage house, and like she's no nonsense. And then they have, of course, this homicide detective who is kind of grudgingly on their side because they've shown him up a bunch of times, so he's like,
Right.
but he's the Lestrade.
Right.
So it's the parallels, and like I said, until I started writing it, I didn't quite realize, and then I was like,
That's fun.
oh, that's who this is. Because what was they had the housekeeper in
Yeah, they
Sherlock
did.
Holmes
Right,
too.
yeah,
It's
of
the
course.
same.
She wasn't Scottish, but
No, but
No,
same
it's Baker
Yeah,
Street,
yeah.
Mrs. I
Can't
can't
remember.
I
remember.
can't think of her name, but same idea.
Okay. Yeah.
So-
wow. It's really the same configuration.
It's the same configuration. They live together.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of parallels. So the mysteries, like I said, are solid, but they're not crazy. There's, and they vary though. I mean, there's like a locked room one. There's one there where they go off into the south to investigate something in a small town that's tied to another case they had. There's one case that's sort of a little bit unresolved, and it's a thread that's carrying through all the books. So there's always this thing they're kind of working on in the background, and sometimes
okay.
in the book they'll get a lead, but it's going to come to a head at some point, I suspect.
Right.
And then there's another case where again, kind of it was solved, but feels unresolved because I think the person didn't really get charged with anything. And he's the kind of Moriarty.
That's what I was wondering.
Like he's the Moriarty in this a little bit, which again, didn't realize till I wrote it down. But even all of the secondary characters, even the ones who are just kind of for that particular book, part of that mystery, are pretty fleshed out enough to be compelling. He's good at giving you a feel for somebody really right away. You kind of have a picture in your mind who he's talking about. Some of them are very like New York in the 40s, where people are wearing trench coats and calling people doll, and like it's very, like.
And is it kind of like, do you feel like there's like tongue in cheek to it, or is it? I mean, because it almost sounds like so many stereotypes being played out here.
No,
but it doesn't.
It doesn't, and it doesn't
that
read
way?
like that. Really,
Okay.
It's not a. Yeah, it's not tongue in cheek, really. I mean,
Okay.
she's a little. She's like Parker shades like the tiniest bit ridiculous. Like sometimes
Right.
she makes a lot of jokes that are.
Over corny or something.
Yeah, kind of. That you're like, is that how people talk? Like maybe it is. I don't know. But I think it's still compelling, and I think it's worth a read. I think that the series you'd want to read it in order because there is significant character development, and they don't do a lot of backstory, which I always appreciate in a series. Like I get irritated when they rehash everyone's history at the beginning so that you could read it at no, just
You just need to
need
read all of
it in
them.
order.
Yeah.
Again, also for the mysteries that kind of the one or two that are sort of like threads throughout. If you liked Ashley Weaver's Electra McDonnell series, I think you would also like these. Those are set in England during World War II, and they're different, but it's a similar vibe. Like the mysteries are not necessarily super exciting, but the
Yeah.
the
so
characters
you're
are compelling.
reading for the characters, and you're reading for the continuity through the the growth of
Yes,
those
the
characters.
growth
through the
of the
books.
characters and the change. Catherine, if you in terms of kind of tone and place and
Yeah.
setting, Catherine Shellman's last call at the Nightingale, which I think was like 2 years ago, came out maybe. Similar vibe,
What
similar
about
main character.
The Beekeeper's Apprentice? 'Cause that's about.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it takes place in the time, like it's
Yes,
the the
yes.
20s or early, is it the 20s, early 1900s? But yeah, kind of. It's because that's like Lady
Okay,
Sherlock.
now I have to
Yeah.
plug it because the Beekeeper's Apprentice. She's coming to talk to
Oh.
us specifically on Zoom.
Cool.
Oh, that's right. I forgot
We
about
have her. So I mean, I had to just throw that
Yeah,
in there.
yeah.
So keep an eye on that for you. Keep an eye on the calendar for the Zoom of Beekeeper's Apprentice because it's her 30th. It's the 30th anniversary of that book.
Wow.
Or is it
Yeah,
30?
it was.
It's a long time.
It
ago
was a
now.
long time. I read the
Yeah.
first few, and there are quite a few. I just kind of got away from it, but I remember enjoying it. It's an interesting perspective and
Right.
take on that.
And she's
Sherlock.
been going ever since then, right?
Yeah,
it
I think they've
hasn't
pretty
stopped.
consistently.
Yeah.
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 Anyway,
So that
sorry
was
to interrupt.
Stephen Spotswood, Parker, Pentecost and Parker series.
Sounds good. Okay, so we're moving from mysteries to dysfunctional families.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Love it.
So,
Neat segue. If there
Neat
ever
segue.
was one.
well, the segue is that it takes place in Brooklyn.
Oh,
A
there you
lot
go.
of it takes
Nice
place in Brooklyn.
job.
So it's The Latecomer by Jean Hanff Corlitz. The Oppenheimer triplets, who were thought of by not a single person who knew them as the Oppenheimer triplets, had been in full flight from one another as far back as their ancestral petri dishes.
So they've been not liking each other very much. Okay.
That's the first sentence in the book.
Oh,
Is that wonderful?
that's complicated.
Yeah.
There's some double negatives in there that like make you
Yes.
want to go
read
back
it
and
Yes,
again. Yeah.
yes. Do you want me to read it again? No.
No, it's okay.
So the novel traces the triplets' father and their mother in the first third of the book. And then the second third is the triplets themselves. And they're all wonderfully drawn. They're really fully expanded. Their father is very numb. And that's, he only feels passion when he's viewing his abstract paintings. He's become a collector, and
Right.
that's the only time he feels passion. Their mother is so desperate to create a loving, cohesive family that she can't see all the divisions and all the heartache and all the mishigas, let's say, put it that way. Sorry, all the craziness that's going on in her family. Then there are the triplets themselves, Harrison, the smart one, who believes he is God's gift to the world. Lewin, his brother, who believes all the negative things that Harrison says about him. And Sally, the third triplet, who is hiding a lot of secrets that she doesn't even know she's keeping. She's keeping them from herself. So the family, Corlitz has said, is built on a fault line, which happens with dysfunctional families, is they have secrets, and there are tons of secrets in this book. In this case, the first major secret is that the father has been in a car accident when he was in college. He was driving a Jeep, and through no fault of his own, there was an accident. And his best friend gets killed, and a woman that was in the car. And so he carries this heavy burden, which he doesn't talk about. So you can understand why he's
Contributes to the numbness.
Yeah. So that unspoken trauma affects his wife and then is passed down to the children, hence the fault line that she talks about. So all these characters are flawed and not particularly likable. But Corlitz's storytelling abilities are so great. She did a couple of thrillers, like we were talking about. The Plot she wrote, which just came out, and the other one is The Undoing. And so she's learned from those. It really moves, although I got to say it's a slow book at the beginning. It's a slow burn, but I'll get back to that. But she keeps the reader wanting to know what happens next and discover the secret that these characters are keeping. It's also Corlitz's ability to have you care about them, even though they're not particularly
like them.
likable. And they do learn. So again, as I was saying, it's a slow burn story, but the author gradually but consistently revealing secrets and putting in plot twists, it really moves along. Part of the slow build is that there are a lot of subplots and a lot of things she goes into in depth. There's a lot in this book. So like Sally falls in love with antique furniture. So as she learns about it, you learn about it too. And her father's into the modern art. So we learn about that and his collecting. Oh, and she had help from Steve Martin on that because he is an avid collector and he collects modern art. Yeah, so that was a cool little thing. There's the involvement of liberal politics and its effect on education, on right-wing conservatives, on Judaism. They are a Jewish family, but there's also stuff about Mormonism. One of the characters goes and explores Mormonism.
It does seem like it's covering quite a lot of ground.
And that isn't even all of it, but it's really fascinating. Some of it's told with humor, all of it's thought-provoking. And it is like 400 pages.
I mean, but it doesn't
it's
look
good.
crazy long.
No,
Like,
no.
That's a standard
But
length.
I'm waiting for like, there's the latecomer. Who's the latecomer?
I wasn't going to say.
Oh, okay. I just was looking at the cover.
Well, so
and-
the cover is 3 roses,
yeah,
and they're in test tubes because they're all
they're
in
petri-
vitro,
right? In vitro
right?
fertilization.
And this little one is the latecomer. So after the 3 older kids go off to college, the mother is still unfulfilled. She hasn't gotten her perfect family. There was 1 embryo left. So
okay,
that's
don't
the
tell us anymore.
latecomer.
That's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine.
I think it doesn't spoil anything.
I mean,
It's so cool.
It is on
I
the
was
cover.
getting there.
That-
I mean.
yeah.
That I didn't. If you notice, I didn't say what the 3rd part of the book is. She's the 3rd part of the book.
Okay.
Okay, so another important part of the book is her writing. It's gorgeous. And when I learned she was a poet,
You can
it all
see why.
made sense,
Mhm.
right? It's like the Petri dish, right? The primeval Petri dish
Oh,
that I
right,
said.
right, right. In the first.
It's just
first
ancestral,
line.
ancestral,
Yeah.
right? And Corlitz herself has commented that she can't leave an ugly sentence on the page, and it shows. So people will really enjoy that. Her beautiful language is also apparent in the setting, like she does Brooklyn, but she doesn't do just one place in Brooklyn. It's a couple of places, and it also, the book spans about 50 years.
Oh, okay.
So it's in different time periods of Brooklyn too, which is fascinating. She also does Ithaca, Cornell, and upstate New York. And also,
what's going on?
I have
I mean,
New
she has to be
Hampshire,
crafting
too.
her sentences really carefully to get
Yes.
all of that
I
into
know,
400
Well,
pages.
and obviously
she
she
spent a
does.
long
Yeah.
time writing this. In fact, she started it, put it aside, wrote the plot
And then came back.
the book, the plot,
Yep.
and then went
Came
back
back.
to this.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
It seems worth it.
So complex, moving family novel with depth and heart.
sounds good.
Sounds
very-
like maybe an Anne Patchett-ish read-alike.
Feels-
Yeah, I don't.
It
It's
feels
hard
more
to-
complicated than
Yes,
Anne
it's
Patchett-
definitely,
hard
but
to
like
get as
Patchett.
family.
fishy with.
But
Yes,
like the,
but
the
family dynamics.
like
yeah,
spanning time.
Commonwealth.
Often,
Right.
she often does that.
yeah,
Anne Patchett's so quiet, though. I mean,
She's
mostly.
quiet. Yes.
yeah.
This doesn't feel so quiet.
And she has more likable characters, I think.
Yes,
that is
true.
true. That is
Yeah.
true.
I thought maybe the World According to Garp.
Oh,
John
I
Irving.
hated that.
So did Terry.
Not
And,
perfectly fine, but
Erin, one of our other colleagues, she read this too and really loved it. And she suggested Jonathan Troper, This Is Where I Leave You.
oh yeah, I could see that.
Yeah,
Like from what you've said.
yeah.
That, yeah.
And in terms of twins, there's the Wally Lamb.
Mm-hmm.
I know this much is true.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
All right.
That's a lot.
That is.
I can tell you about.
Well, we need to hear about Karen.
Yes, let's
in
hear
our
about
last 10
Karen.
minutes.
She's really fascinating.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Karen.
She's got. Were you saying I'm really fast? I know I'm really fast.
You are really
I know,
fascinating.
it's just too much, isn't it? So I want to talk about spy novels because I'm very picky about my spy novels, and I have this like list of criteria that they have to fulfill for me to consider them to be worthwhile. And I'm going to tell you about that because I'm on a little bit of a rant. Because so I really want my spy novels to have a believable storyline that's rings true in terms of the way the world works, right?
Mhm.
It needs the political intrigue needs to be for real.
Mhm.
The protagonist also needs to be for real. Like I don't need a superhero. I don't need.
You're not looking for Jason Bourne.
I'm not looking for Jason
Yeah,
Bourne.
or
Well,
James
actually, I
Bond.
used to like Robert Ludlum a lot, and he is Jason Bourne's
Yeah.
creator. But the way Jason Bourne came out in films, I'm not.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
It's not. I don't need somebody who's all about the action all the time. I don't need. But I do need that person, male, female, to be believable, and real. And I need great tradecraft, spycraft, whatever you want to call it. Those things, the nuts and bolts of how spying
Mhm.
works. I need people to make me believe that they know what they're talking about.
Mhm.
Whether you can go black, like nobody's following you. How nobody's following you. I need to.
Yeah.
I need to have good stuff there. I need to have some suspense and action, and that usually comes with the good tradecraft, right? Settings that help me, like that take me to a faraway place that I haven't been before, and make me know that again, that you've been there, that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You can create a map in my mind of the city or the
Mhm.
region or wherever you are. And then on top of it all, I need a little bit of drama, a little bit of juiciness. It usually in the form of a love story. So for all that to be true, you really do have to have an author, A, who can write, obviously, and B, who knows what they're talking about in terms of, somebody who's actually either been a spy or worked very closely adjacent to spies. And for all of that, I give you David McCloskey, who is my new favorite. This book is actually his second one, Moscow X, but the one I'll talk a little bit about today is called Damascus Station, and that came out a couple of years ago. McCloskey is an ex-CIA analyst, and he gets reviews on his book from like people who are actual CIA operations officers, like that say things like brilliantly captures the nuances of field work in hostile environments, and I'm like, oh, this is my heart.
Go on.
Anyway, if you know me, you might be surprised that I'm into all this stuff, but I am. I don't know. I can't tell you why. So Damascus Station is the one that I finished. I've only just started this one, but Damascus Station, starts in the manner of any good like James Bond film, right into the action. There's you're set down right in the middle of some big thing that's just happening, and that's how Damascus Station starts. Sam, I'm not going to tell you the story of that because it's one of the good bits. I won't spoil it. But we meet Sam, one of our protagonists. He's a CIA analyst. He's a spy, and the scene that happens, the first scene that happens, sets up a little bit of his motivation for why he does the things that he does for the rest of the book, and a bit of a mystery part of a smaller mystery that has to be solved in the course of the book. But the main thing that happens with Sam is he's a long-term operative. He's good at recruiting people. He's worked in the Middle East, and he's sent out to recruit Mariam, who is our other main character, and also the love interest. So there's where that comes in. She is a woman who works in Assad's government, the Syrian government.
Wow.
And they have identified her as somebody who might be able to be turned, and he is sent out to do that in Paris, of course, which is where they fall for each other. But then the rest of the story takes place mostly in Damascus. Other characters, Assad himself is in it. His people, whether it's like the security services people or his kind of cabinet, whatever not cabinet isn't the right word, but his closest advisors. And you get a lot. What I really like about this is because he clearly knows what's going on behind the scenes in these things. And so you're not just getting what you get from the headlines in the news, which is all the bad stuff. You know, these bad guys, they do these bad things to their people. We don't like the Assad government.
Right.
What you see in this book is that the Assad government, there's a lot of people in the Assad government who don't like the Assad government very much.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're either being forced to kind of work for them, or, for instance, a lot of the Christian, Syrian Christians are, their only choice is really to work for the government. It's either that or be persecuted or exiled or whatever. So there's a lot of infighting. There's a lot of kind of cliques and clans inside of all of that he makes really clear here. So that makes it interesting. And then you get all the CIA staff as well. And they're well drawn. There's one character in particular who's the head of station. Her name is Aphrodite Proctor. And she's wild and wacky, and she's a little unhinged actually, but she's pretty talented and she gets the job done. And
you gotta wonder who she's based on.
Yeah, I wish I knew who the real people were. These she's great. She's definitely like, she steals every scene she's in, and she was a lot of fun. So there's other good characters. And then there's lots of action and suspense, but you also get the sense of what it really means to be a spy. Like, a lot of it is waiting, right? You know, a lot of it, you set yourself up for some operation, but the target doesn't show up that day, and so you have to do it again, and then it doesn't work that day, and then again. So it's that kind of stuff about how things can be kind of boring, but then all of a sudden it all blows up.
Then it's not.
Characters are done really well. Mariam is not just a damsel in distress at all. She's Sam's. I mean, she doesn't do the same things as he does. She's an asset, but she's courageous. She's, she knows what she wants, and she is clear, and she's walking this really, really scary line between a whole bunch of these infighting factions and getting the job done, or trying anyway. And through it all, of course, is how is their love affair going to happen or work? Because for either of them to be in love with the other is really not a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, he can't be in love with an
I was going to say,
asset.
isn't there, I think there are rules about relationships
he would
with
be,
assets.
He would be thrown out of the CIA for sure, and she would probably be killed, or just for being with an American, let alone a CIA agent, or at least thrown out of the country. So anyway, there's all of that tension as well. So it's a good story. And
it's not a series, you said.
It's not really a series. So this one, I was hoping that Sam and Mariam were going to be in this one, but they weren't, and I was a little sad about that. But Aphrodite Proctor shows up on the first page, so she's there is a little bit of a connection, and I don't know how much more because I haven't finished this one yet, but there is definitely some connection. And this one takes on Putin's Russia in the same way.
Is it Putin too?
Yes, and Putin is in this one as well.
I always found that the Jason Matthews Red Sparrow series, there was Putin, but they didn't call him that. Like, it was him, but they never they didn't.
Right, but
he had a different name, but it was
him.
Like the descriptions were. I mean, there was no.
Yeah, and that series I would say is a great read alike for this. I mean, except for the fact that is a true trilogy like series.
Yes,
and this one is
with a hard end.
What about the Gabriel Allon series? No.
Okay.
There's I mean, have you read those? I've read a number of them.
Around them. I haven't read them fully.
Yeah.
I think these are a little bit more.
I mean, he's in Mossad. I mean,
right.
No, it's almost all. I think there's only like 2 books that take place in the U.S. It's all international.
I feel like these are just a little bit more hard-edged and real life than the Gabriel Allon.
Those are not.
Those feel a little soft-focused to me. Like
they're out. He's out in the world more than in just the CIA spying.
They're a little fanciful, I think.
Yeah, that's
like
what.
They're the situations they end up in that you're like. It's just a little like they're all doing like the undercover stuff.
Yeah,
is this elaborate ruse that like there's always this really elaborate ruse where this kind of Ocean's 11 type cast of characters.
Exactly.
It's a little
whereas this just feels like
it's not. I don't think it's super realistic.
Like you're on the ground. In a much more kind of realistic.
And he's
way.
an art restorer. Like it's
He's an
Yes.
art restorer.
He's an art restorer, yeah.
But it's not written in a light way. Like they're dark. They're like fairly dark. I
Right.
mean, but it's something about
Yeah.
them is just
So
sort of
we
fanciful.
should say we're talking about Daniel Silva here.
Daniel Silva.
sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
the Gabriel Allon mysteries or the Daniel
And there's a
Silva-
number of those,
Silva
and they're good.
mysteries.
They're not.
very good.
I
No,
wouldn't
no,
say
no.
they're tradecraft.
They're not this kind of like detailed. I don't know why I like these so much. I mean, you know me.
I love
I'm not.
them.
It's not like
Totally love
it's not
those
like
books.
I'm not in love with the violence or the.
No, it's not about that. It's the
It's
like.
not about the
it's
patriotism.
spy
It's none of
stuff.
that.
It's the all that stuff.
I
the-
know. I don't know. Anyway,
The
so
dead drops and trees and stuff.
dead drops. Yeah, who doesn't like a good dead drop? David
And
McCloskey.
what about, how would you compare him to Le Carré?
Well, I think there's a very, very much a similarity there. The thing that I think I never liked Le Carré,
I don't either.
it's too dry for me. It's too
It's
much.
way too
Oh,
dry.
It's too dry. It's
Interesting.
too technical. Too. There's no juicy love stories in
Yeah,
Le Carré.
Yeah,
They're just, you know,
It's
I need
very-
it. It's more like Ludlum.
yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
this is more like Ludlum.
Okay.
And Ludlum has
Interesting.
has that little bit of drama that I need. See, I'm
Yeah,
telling
Le
you,
Carré
I'm
is not
picky.
dramatic. It's like it's clinical.
Yes, it's
He-
very clinical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so
We got a lot
David
of feelings
McCloskey.
today.
And, oh gosh, we're over time and all done. So we will be back next month with another one for you with I don't know. Who knows?
Various
Who knows who will come.
configurations.
Who knows? But come on in and see us in the library, and we'll see you again here next month for Book Buzz.